Hey, I am Bob Cooney. I want to thank everybody for joining today for really what I hope and I think is going to be a really engaging discussion around augmented reality. There's been a lot of talk about virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, all these realities. And today we're going to do a bit of a deep dive into reality and how it's going to change our reality and how we show up in the world. And that's the part that I find fascinating. I've got a panel of really, really talented guests, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves, frankly, because I won't do nearly as good a job as they will. Vivian, why don't we start with you? Want to tell us who you are, why you're here?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Vivian Chan. I'm the Chief Channel Officer and Head of North America Sales for Nextech AR. And I have been involved in AR, VR since 2014. I'm 20 years in technology, but I got inspired and got the bug in 2014 when I started the Simon Fraser University's Innovation Initiative. And I was connected to some of the most incredible researchers and technologists across my province in the AR VR space. And I'm also a failed entrepreneur. I had an AR VR startup that had been impacted by COVID, but now I'm with Nextech, and we've got a pretty incredible platform of augmented reality solutions for e-commerce, learning, and industry and events. Excited to share different examples of what we do and where the world is going, because it's AR's time right now.
You know what I love about the startup and entrepreneur culture now is that failure has become a badge of success, really, right? I mean, a lot of investors won't invest in you unless you've had a failed startup, because we learn so much more from our failures than we do our successes. So I love that. Thanks for sharing. Marc,
how you doing?
What's going on? You do all kinds of stuff, and the Tesla Science Center is fascinating. What's happening?
I'm a serial entrepreneur, and in addition to my company, I head up two organizations here in New York. One is the Business Incubator Association of New York State. We're a trade association of a little over 100, actually now 110 business incubators around New York State and accelerators. They house about 3,000 startups, and many of those startups are in mixed reality. And I head up the Tesla Science Center, which has been a passion project of mine. But we saved Nikola Tesla, the famed inventor's last standing lab, which is located here in New York. And we're turning it into a museum, a science center, and a innovation/business accelerator, which that's still fluid, and it's under advisement of what we're planning to do there. But what we are planning to do is promote and utilize cutting edge technologies in the mixed reality space, partly because it's Science Center 2.0, but partly because we were saved by the world. 33,000 donors from 108 countries in all 50 states of the United States donated to save the property. And not all of them are going to get there right away. And so when we roll out a program, it's got to be in mixed reality, and everybody's got to have an opportunity to partake in it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And at the end, we'll circle back and let people know if they want to get involved, how they might be able to do that. Oded, why are you here?
That's a good question. Well, frankly, I have several hats. And I want, first of all, say my name is Oded Eliashiv. I can say I'm the managing partner of Build Ventures, which is a prop tech, construction tech fund, and also the CEO of Investination, which is a crowdfunding platform which right now, Augmind, which we're already invested at. This is Ran. He'll talk about himself in a moment. It's an investment opportunity in our platform. So investination.com is where you can actually learn more about, actual Augmind and opportunity there. Vivian, you said about, being a failed entrepreneur. I'm a serial entrepreneur as well. I think I always say to people, I'm honored to have failed because I have learned so much more from my failures and my success. I also, luckily for me, I also had a few successes. But listen, that's a badge of honor. And today I'm here, you know, supporting Augmind, and you know, we invested in Augmind because it's such an amazing technology, such an amazing team, people who actually execute and bring their vision and make it real. And I've been watching augmented reality, I don't know from when, so many years, I don't want to say how much. And I think they're going to make it happen. So I'm looking forward to have a, you know, exciting discussion. I'll hand it over back to you, Bob.
Yeah, Ron, thanks, Oded. And Ron, tell us a little bit about you know, Augmind and what you guys do.
Thank you, Bob. Hi, everyone. Ran Kern. I'm co-founder of Augmind. Augmind is a technology startup based out of Tel Aviv, Israel. We've been around for about a couple of years or so, so far operating in several countries around the world. And our field is AR, VR, mixed reality technologies. And basically what we've been doing has been trying to reinvent the wheel in terms of content creation, 3D mobile performance content creation, especially for immersive technologies, so that, you know, we can bring that content to the next level, bring the future that everybody dreams about for us for today.
Awesome. We're going to do a little musical chairs here, moving people around the screen. So, just as a reminder for everybody, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat, and I'll be watching questions, and we'll work them in, as many of them as we can, into the conversation. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Bob Cooney. I've been in and around you know, the XR space, as we'll call it, virtual reality, augmented reality, for about 35 years. And I won't bore you with my background. You can check me out at bobcooney.com if you're really bored and interested. And I want to start, but I do want to start out with a little bit of an explanation of reality, right? I mean, there's all these reality terms that we throw around, and you know, you hear virtual reality, which I think more and more people are becoming familiar with. And virtual reality is when you put on a headset and all you see is the virtual world. It's all synthetic or computer generated, and you can't see through to the real world, right? And augmented reality is where you actually see the real world. You're looking at the world through, right now, cameras or a lens that's somewhat transparent, and then there are virtual objects placed in the real world in a way that make them look real. And we're getting really like closer and closer to that point where the things that you see in the real world do look real. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we deliver that today. And then you'll hear terms about like mixed reality, and XR, which is extended reality, which is all the R's put together. But I think, you know, a lot of times mixed reality and augmented reality are used interchangeably, and there are some differences there that I don't want to bore the audience with. But I think today we're really going to be focusing mostly on augmented reality and some of the applications of that. And that's really where I want to start. And I think I'll start with you, Vivian, and then hand it off to Ron. What do you see the use cases? Because the technology, we can bore people with technology all day. It doesn't matter. It's really, how do we use the technology in ways that are going to actually be meaningful and create value for an ecosystem or a consumer or a business or an investor, per se. And so talk about some of the use cases that you're seeing now that are working.
At the heart of what we do, we need to learn. We need to be inspired, and we need to engage. We need to have a level of engagement that is dynamic. You know, these are core fundamental human needs that, you know, are more necessary now more than ever, now that, you know, we're confined to our screens and whatnot. The use cases that we have, that I've been working directly with customers of Nextech AR, that have been blowing me away. And again, it's a co-creative process that we work with our clients with. The one that comes to mind, there's two, Ryerson University. They came to us a year ago and said, you know, we want to build the science labs of the future. And, you know, this was pre-COVID and whatnot. And, you know, how do we learn chemistry equipment? How do we teach people how to use test tubes and learn all that equipment in a more digital format? And so we started to create with them about, you know, like a series of 8 labs in chemistry with them. It's gone so well that now we're building 40 more labs in the science and biology spaces. And this is used by over 8,000 students. They're highly engaged. We can kind of track what they're doing, what they're using. It supplements their current education, the videos, the text and all that. It's supplemental to all of that. And we house it all in our platform right now. So it's this kind of integrated learning experience with video, text, content, and then this augmented reality variable to it. And it's worked tremendously well. And we see huge opportunities in that place because you learn, you're inspired, and you're engaging. The second use case that we have is sort of in the association event conferences, trade show spaces as well. We can't meet immediately in person in these large 5,000, 10,000 person events. Not immediately, we're going to go to hybrid fairly soon. And I'm super excited about that because I think that's the future as well. But in the interim, we have to connect virtually and we're all zoomed out a little bit. And so how do you make that differentiation, right? How do I bring a 50-ton rig into your room? I mean, it would have been hard anyways at a convention center because the drayage and, the cost of bringing a 50-ton thing would have been really heavy and expensive. But you can do that now with augmented reality. We can beam in that 15-ton rig into into your home. We can even beam it in if you're at a trade show, because it would have been hard to put that thing in. And we can have these shared moments. And so one of the things that we always talk about is that we're a moment factory. Augmented reality is your new tool for storytelling.
We're going to get into that a little bit too, and how I think that's going to, some technology innovations that are rolling out now in consumer products that are going to really unlock that. Thanks, Ron. What do you see as the use cases? Like, where are you seeing them now today that are working? We'll get into some of the emerging ones, but what's happening right now that you see that's hot in augmented reality?
Thank you. For starters, Vivian, I second that completely. I mean, from a higher level perspective, we look at different sectors of different industries that are implemented, augmented reality for brand awareness, for marketing. But specifically, we've seen the use cases in healthcare. We had one implementation where we basically built a platform for surgeons and professors in one country to train in real time interns in a different country in surgery. We've seen that in real estate. We've seen that in military training. We actually had, we can't name the countries, but several different government branches from different countries came to us and said, we need zero latency. We need to train in this and that in augmented reality and so forth. One interesting use case that we saw is in retail. COVID affected a lot of countries, a lot of people, a lot of stores. One interesting example is that we had a famous jewelry brand that came to us and said, our stores are closed. What are we going to do? We lose money. How do we bring our jewelry collection to people's home to try it and see and look what it feels like and then buy? Using what we have today, it was very difficult to do because, diamonds and different jewelry, it has to look real, it has to shine, it has to look perfect, and, ladies would like to try them on. So we did it. We modeled their collections. We actually, had the, security guards transferred the actual jewelry, put them in a safe, model them, but brought them to life using augmented reality. And then the next step is create some sort of a form for people to actually try it on their, ears, neck, and hands, and so forth. So it's just, one example of what we're seeing, that this trend and the usage of augmented reality, trying to expand from, one small gimmick game, which is still cool and it's still engaging, but bringing it to our, day-to-day use and effectively seeing how that's ultimately going to change our life.
Yeah, it's really interesting, Marc and Oded, I'd love you to chime in on this, but I think that there are technologies that come out and people often just wonder, and it looks like a gimmick, and then they dismiss it. And, this is called, macro myopia is the term. Then Gartner kind of, co-opted it, branded it, and called it the hype cycle, where you have this the peak of inflated expectations, and then people take it doesn't quite live up to its initial expectation, and people go, oh, that was just a fad, and then they look away, and next thing you know, it's everywhere. And I always use the mobile phone as a great recent example that we've all lived through. And the smartphone, initially it came out, it really wasn't that smart, right? And it was a mediocre everything: phone, web experience, game player, music player, and then Apple steps in and changes it with the iPhone, and then now we're so dependent on them that we can't survive without them. And the smartphone is really, for those of you that aren't familiar with augmented reality, because I know we're talking a lot about it, but if you haven't done it or seen it, there's some big companies that are using it right now. Amazon, for example, if you go to Amazon on the phone, you can actually select certain products and it'll say, see it in your home. And you actually just hold your phone around your room, and next thing you know, it places the object in your room at scale. And so if you're looking at a toaster, you can go to your kitchen and you can actually hold your phone up to your kitchen counter, and you'll see the toaster in your kitchen to see what it would look like and if it fits the decor. And IKEA has been doing this now for a couple of years with their furniture. You can actually decide what furniture you want, go into your room and place the IKEA furniture on a phone or a tablet in your room and actually see it. And so when you have big enterprise companies in retail that are actually using this now, Ron, you were talking about jewelry, the ability to show your watch or a bracelet right on your wrist, or shoes. Sneakerheads are going crazy because you can see what the shoes look like on your feet. This stuff's happening. There's no doubt that it's going to take place. It's just a function of, time and use case. And so, Marc, let's start with you. You talk to a lot of companies, over 110 in this incubator program, and you're committed to using extended reality and at the Tesla Science Center. Where do you see this thing? Where do you see the next use case? Where do you see the one that's a no-brainer that might be waiting on something? And then we'll talk about what it might be waiting on.
Well, I don't know if it's the next use case. I can tell you what my goal is over the next year and a half. And I think it's similar to what Vivian was mentioning that she's done for others. So I private messaged her that we need to talk offline. But we plan to have students that are geographically dispersed. We want to pull them into the Tesla lab, which will be a 3D rendering of that lab. We want a teacher in front of that. We want these students wearing headsets, and we want to give a really good experience. And in doing that, it's still pretty novel, and we're going to learn from that. They're going to learn from that, but we're going to learn from that, and we'll learn new use cases after. How do we improve that experience? But I think what people want to get to is where geographic placement doesn't matter. Where people want to get to is not staring at a movie screen when you go to the movies, but you want to be in the movies. And I know that's not necessarily augmented reality, but your life could be a movie. You could be walking around and you could be placing things, not just objects that you're going to buy in your house, but I mentioned Pokemon Go. It was hugely successful. I know that some people poke at it. It was a cartoon, but that doesn't matter. We learned from that. It was something that people adopted and loved and became addictive. And I think that, in a good way, augmented reality will become somewhat addictive in terms of it is going to enhance our lives as we learn how to use it and pull it in. And you mentioned the smartphone. So what I'd say is whatever we could dream, we make. And when it comes to augmented reality and virtual reality, that is even more so. In 1926, Nikola Tesla said that one day you're going to carry a device in your coat pocket where you could talk to anybody wirelessly in the world, because he was one of the forefathers of wireless, and send typewritten messages and movies. And people said, this guy is nuts, because every time he said something outlandish like that, they couldn't even wrap their minds around it. So here, we have the smartphone, and here we're, placing augmented reality, into that smartphone and layering it into our lives. And, we can't even fathom where this is going to be 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. But I'm just starting with baby steps and learning myself.
Yeah. Oded, and because somebody mentioned, I think Ron, you mentioned real estate, and I know you do a lot in tech around real estate and construction and stuff like that. How do you see AR kind of playing out now? Because that actually is, right? It's like the ability to visualize something that hasn't been built yet. Talking about visualizing the future. Augmented reality gives the normal person who's not Nikola Tesla to the ability to visualize something that doesn't exist yet. What are you seeing in construction and real estate these days around AR?
Well, just before I answer that, I want to say to Mark, who you mentioned that you want to see your life as a movie. I can tell you that I already am in my movie of my life, and this is a fascinating movie, and as a serial entrepreneur, and now working with other entrepreneurs and trying to make their vision come true, it's really an exciting journey. So back to your question. Listen. One of the reasons that we decided to invest in Augmind is, yes, there is a very clear view and understanding what play it can make in the prop tech, construction tech, real estate tech, whatever you want to call it. But the investment decision is we invest in companies where we're not going to wait for 5 years to see something happen. We invest in companies where we see something is actually happening, and the company is making money, first of all, and they have technology is right about to be ready to expand and be available to many different studios, and they're now utilizing that technology to cut down costs and production time, which is amazing. So touching the real estate tech, which is this is one of the last frontiers where technology have not come inside really. The real estate arena was so conservative, but now the technology is coming in, innovation is coming in. Listen, I don't know how to explain it. It's exploding. We've just been in Dubai last week. Yeah, we're the first and only real estate tech delegation. Showcasing 6 companies in Dubai, and we are seeing the response from Dubai developers. We're seeing the response from developers and other real estate stakeholders in the US, in North America, in Europe. It's happening now. And I think COVID-19 is actually something that I think accelerated, the adoption of technology. I think it's not just about, one sector, it's about all the sectors,
Yeah.
My mother, she's quite, she's not young, and she's already understanding how to work with Zoom. Who would have thought of that, right? So basically, this is something which is happening today. They need, solutions today, and what Augmind can provide in that sector is exactly what they need.
Yeah, there's no doubt that.
We have to have 2 hours of webinars.
Yeah, and I'd have to use the mute button on you, and I don't want to do that because the next question I want to talk to Ron, and you're on the same microphone, so you got me at a disadvantage. So, the fact that COVID has accelerated the adoption of these technologies. There's not only these technologies, but a lot of technology, specifically in remote collaboration, where we can't. You've mentioned, and virtual events. Both of those markets have exploded, and so. The timing on this stuff is really heating up. There's no doubt about that. Ron, let's talk a little bit about the technology without getting too deep into the technology, right? So what are the challenges that are holding augmented reality back, and how are you addressing those to enable it to accelerate? Because I think that's really, in my mind, the key question when I look at a company. What's the problem? What's the solution? Let's just answer that really simply for the audience.
Yes, thank you, Bob. So let's separate for a second, hardware with software, right? So, hardware you described earlier, heat map displays, and the difference between AR and VR and what we do today with smartphones, and that's going. But content is king, and it's the same thing with immersive technologies. And so companies spend billions on the next platform. But again, you know, if you don't have something that's really cool, the next killer app or so, then who's going to use it, right? So again, content is an imperative aspect of everything that we're talking about. And some of the main challenges is in creating this particular content. This is, you know, we're talking about 3D content that's not easy to produce. It's long, it's expensive. There's a lot of different, you know, technical challenges within the process per se, which we're not necessarily going to have enough time to get into in this discussion. But eventually what happens is that if you're going to try to make something that looks good, or, you know, close to be looking real, and eventually, you know, what everybody wants to do is create something that is so real that you won't be able to tell the difference between what's real and what's, you know, virtual. So you end up selling it for, you know, low quality graphics, if you will, because it's expensive, because, you know, the process is long, and, you know, companies have to produce something eventually. Even so, if you were able, with enough money and enough time, to create something that is, you know, it's phenomenal, it looks so good, looks so real, a lot of times what happens is that content is so heavy and it's so big, you can download it, you can play it on most mobile devices that we talked about, etc. So again, leads us back to, you know, the main challenges. And that's basically what we were looking at when, you know, we put the technology together. How do we alleviate those challenges? For starters, you know, we changed the whole process of the, you know, the production of this kind of content. We shortened 10x the time that it takes to create this kind of content. It's actually even more. We have, you know, proven test cases of, you know, different kinds of content productions. And at the end, you actually reach a content that look realistic, but is also affected in real time by the end user's point of view, natural surrounding, lighting, conditions and reflections and directions, and all of that basically leads to a virtual content or a virtual asset to look so real and engage with you. So basically kind of like, you know, thinning in that line between what's real and what's not. So, you know, shortening the time, you save, you know, you save money, you save time, but also at the end of the day, whatever you were able to produce is so light that you can almost play it on any mobile device and any platform, which is obviously key to what we're trying to do, and bring that added value to the hardware, to the devices.
That's why we invested.
And so I just want to clarify something. So the technology that the solution that you're selling, where does it sit in the ecosystem, right? So there's an ecosystem to bring an experience to market like this. There's hardware, there's firmware, there's platforms, there's agencies. Like, who actually uses this, and where does it sit in that ecosystem?
Thank you. So, you know, if we looked at the hardware, looked at the software, there's the devices that being manufactured, and then there's the customers of this, which are the industries, like we mentioned, real estate and retail, etc. And who actually creates this kind of content? Apps per se, you know, AR apps, VR games, etc. Leading us to even more of web AR, so it's easier, and you don't have to create an app for everyone to download and so forth. Those are studios, developers, indie developers, large, medium, small. Some of the studios number thousands of developers, and they're all in charge of producing this kind of content. There's actually 20 or so different titles of different development aspects of these people who produce and develop and design this kind of content. That's the ecosystem, and basically that's a target market for those people to eventually be able to use what we're doing today manually at Augmind.
Got it. And so Vivian, where does what you do, where does that fit into this whole picture now that we're starting to paint around an ecosystem and the technology solution landscape?
Yeah, the ecosystem is essential, and Ran, highly recommend you participate in SeaGraph. That's an amazing community of people that could benefit from, you know, the pipeline that you're making innovations from. You have to be able to create, you have to be able to view, And then you have to be able to kind of experience all that. And I would say that we're quite focused on the pieces around view and experience. That's the section of where we really fit. And so we would partner with a provider like Augmind to really expedite the production of that, because there's an insatiable appetite right now for content, high quality augmented reality content, and we can't work fast enough to build that content. But the ability to view it and the ability to kind of experience it and track the data analytics around how people are behaving with 3D models, what do they care about, et cetera, is really important. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Back to Marc's Life as a Movie. We've got a product called Air Show. And it's this notion around human holograms as entertainment. Life as a Movie is ready today as well. And again, back to Oded, we have to talk about what's already available today. We did an activation with Offset, Cardi B's husband, on and off husband. And he came and did a private concert in 3D with us, and then did also sort of a meet and greet. You could go literally with his augmented reality hologram and take a selfie. You could also do a duet with Offset and sing alongside with him. And so this Life as a Movie thing is already happening. And so the way that we view it, the way that we experience it is kind of essential. And that's the part that makes it really sticky. But you also have to have that beautiful content. It's got to look photorealistic. This has been one of the criticisms for many years, and I've been watching this since 2014 deeply. We've got the advent of AI. AI is helping expedite the pipeline, the creation of that content. Also, I have to give credence to Unity and Unreal. They've stepped up their engines that are an essential part of that pipeline. So they kind of upped the ante on that. So we have to give them some credit for what they've done in the last couple of years. And then the third piece is talent. If you don't have great people that build the talent, just like in the movie sector, then you're not going to be able to create these beautiful immersive experiences. And I think that everything is coming to a head right now. This notion around speed, this notion around technology, and this notion around people. And when that trifecta comes together, you now have a moment. And that's why I think augmented reality in the next couple of years is going to really it's finally going to have its moment. We've been waiting, right? Because those three things weren't ready yet.
Yeah. And when you talk about storytelling, I just want to connect it for the audience. If you think about some of the big companies out there, Instagram is all about storytelling, right? It's about, it allows people to turn their experiences into a product that they can share with the world. And it's really simple because, it started out with just a snapshot and now it's moved to short form video. But the way things are moving is ultimately this is going to be in a 3D world. And we'll, and I want to talk about just for a second, the new iPhone 12 and the iPad has what's called a LiDAR camera built into it. And Samsung obviously is going to have to keep up. And so within a couple of years, every phone or smartphone is going to have a 3D sensing camera in it. And so I want somebody to talk about the impact of that on augmented reality, and then how that actually fits into the discussion we're having today, because this is ultimately going to become consumer technology. And that's the thing, we talk about B2B and B2B, and versus B2C, and this has all been mostly a B2B discussion because that's where that stuff starts. But when I'm looking at an investment, right, and I'm looking at addressable market, Snapchat, people might not realize, is actually an augmented reality company that has a $70 billion market cap right now. And so how do you see the fact that we're going to be able to do 3D capture on our phones? I actually do it right now. How is that going to change the world, and how does your technology play into that opportunity? Who wants to grab that one?
Well, I can just say that in perspective, when looking at when we see deal flow companies, and we look into we do the due diligence, we look into the technology, and we want to understand what's going to happen in the market. Because we are a seed player. We catch companies that we believe in at a seed stage. Now, I said before, but still, okay, seed, it can still take a lot of years till, it gets ready to be in the market and so forth. But we are looking at a more shorter version of time. And that is one of the reasons that we invested, because we understood that we are at the point where it's going to explode. It's going to reach to, like you said, iPhone 12, lighter. It's getting to the consumer, it's getting to the C. Once it gets to the C, okay, and that's one of the last, barriers of entrance to make this a more common, applications and so forth. So basically, that's what we saw when we, analyzed, and some of our company analysis is on our website, investination.com, and you can look at it. But we looked into every aspect to understand: is this something that's going to be far in the future, or is it something that we might see in you said, Vivian, the next couple of years? I think you're right on the dot. I think that's what's going to happen. And we're gonna sit here and say, hopefully, God help, that we made a very good and wise choice and got in the right time at the seed stage, but not something which is science fiction. It's not science fiction. It's around the corner.
Right. Ron's coming out of his seat.
Yeah. So your question, Bob, is actually super interesting, and I want to tie that to what Vivian said earlier, because I think that it is part of the process. Using artificial intelligence and machine learning is part of the process, and it's also what we use internally, because that essentially creates automation. And if we're looking at a very specific skill set of high-end people, designer, artists, and tech people, that automation basically helps in the process to make things better and faster and easier for everyone. Tie that, with the 3D modeling that you expressed earlier, Bob. It is part of the modeling process. So the whole production process combined of, the model itself, whether that being the person, or, if I take this cup and I use my phone to create a 3D model out of it. But at the end of the day, even so, if you have a model, you still need to kind of dress it up, right? It's combined of materials and textures, and those components also have their own challenges in creating the final result. So it is part of the whole production process that we keep seeing get better and better and easier. And I think eventually what's going to happen is that if everyone's going to have the ability to scan and create a 3D model of themselves, or if I can create a 3D model of Oded here, he's actually a hologram, he's not really here, we were just seeing as a background, then that's going to lead us to what everyone's talking about eventually, crowd conferences, virtual conferences, not just over Zoom or etc., but really model our entire environment, entire surrounding, model ourselves and interact with each other virtually as 3D avatars.
And I just want to, before you go, Vivian, just to connect with you for the audience who might not be so understanding of the tech and what we're talking about, to make it real for you, think about filters, okay? And how in Instagram, it was you take a photo and you would post it, and then you would take a photo and you would apply filters to it, and then you apply stickers to it, and now you can animate them. And so people get more and more sophisticated with what they want to do with their images as they tell the story of their lives. And to connect it back to what Marc was saying. And so this ability to capture something with your phone in 3D, but again, how real does it look? And then make it shine, make it really represent the product or the person or whatever it is you want to do is absolutely coming. There's no doubt about it that this is going to happen. And so I just want to make sure people see a real world today example of what we're going to be moving to with augmented reality. Sorry, Vivian, go.
Yeah, I've talked to a number of developers about the new iPhone and the LiDAR technology, and I'll be very honest, it's got some ways to go. The occlusions are a little off, the pixelation is not there yet, and that's why you need pipelines like Augmind to make it photorealistic. And so you're going to have the kind of consumer-driven content that's it's okay, it's kind of fun. That's going to, over time, with the acceleration curve, going to be better. And so you're going to have, consumer created content, but then you also need that kind of high-end content. again, where I think the B2C play is in that whole workflow, right? We're creating these beautiful photorealistic, 3D models. We're able to view it very easily with our phones. Not many people use BlackBerry anymore. So pretty much everyone, the addressable market is anyone that has a smartphone. That is not an SE, right? That's like most of the world. And then being able to experience that. And so the B2C play is really around the experience, right? We're working with retailers right now. We work with Dell Computer to launch one of their new laptops. You can actually put your laptop and the augmented reality 3D laptop of Dell's laptop, open it, spin it around, look at some of the features. And I literally can compare my Mac, sorry, Dell, and compare it with the Dell computer next to me. Like, that's happening already. And we see that that's the B2C play, right?
I just have to say something regarding the C play here, because basically, and it also connects to the storytelling. People want to sense a feel of connectivity. We're now in COVID, right? We're social distancing, almost no flights. We're in Zoom fever all the time, right? And we need this, something that will enable us some emotional, connectivity. And I think that is something that people earn. And this is part of the storytelling and make your life a movie. All this comes together if you have the ability to bring to life something that looks real, that you can relate to, you can connect. And I think that's one of the aspects for the C to come in. It has to be there. It has to have some kind of solution that'll make it feel that it is real. Like the diamonds Ran mentioned before, a woman wants to see how it looks at her, right? A person wants to walk inside an apartment and see how does the apartment look without being there, and see, okay, I can choose one light, another light, marble, reflection, all that. It's about, the emotional, connectivity with the C. And I think that is something that we're hopefully going to see very soon.
Yeah. So Marc, you talked about Pokemon Go. We actually have a question from Anand Bothra about, gaming. Where do you see where do we see AR in the future of online multiplayer gaming? I know Niantic is another company that is in the augmented reality space that I don't know what their valuation is. I could look it up in a sec, but has blown up. And so where do we see gaming going and AR playing in multiplayer online gaming in the future? Any thoughts there?
Well, so again, if you're talking about multiplayer in augmented reality, when you start getting the level of artistry, is what I'm going to call it, that a company like Augmind does, where the end product is something that fools you. I'm not even going to call it augmented reality. I'm going to call it alternative reality. You're going to be living in alternative reality, and others can join your game. You're going to have people approaching you when you have whatever the hardware is on. Hopefully it's a nice light set of glasses or a pair of contact lenses, and they might not really be there, but as long as you're in the game, they're there. Your reality is this new alternative reality. That's where I see gaming going. Maybe it's not next year, but within the next 5-10 years. I'm blown away. You mentioned the LiDAR on the smartphones. I've gotten involved and have invested in alternative reality and augmented reality and virtual reality companies. And I remember when somebody was trying to pitch me on getting involved with a company that did the 3D scans of buildings, we did the rabbit hole of where's this go? And it was the thought pattern of, you're not looking at a movie screen anymore. You have a headset on and you're in the movie. Not that life is a movie yet when you have the headset on, but eventually, like we said, it will be. But they told me in those meetings that eventually everybody's going to have it on their phone. And then, so what happens? Well, then home videos now become these virtual reality, augmented reality, 3D experiences. And then what do you do with that? Well, I have my grandmother standing in front of me, talking at me. That's going to rip my heart out. Well, layer in AI and have new conversations with this 3D rendering of your grandmother that's tricking you. I mean, it is what's going to happen over the next 5-10 years is going to be explosive. Whether it's a game, well, if it's an alternative reality, I guess it's a game no matter what.
Yeah. So you know, you're touching on something that I love to talk about, which is the metaverse, right? Which is this concept of us living in an alternate reality. And some people, Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote an amazing book, The Four Agreements, you know, talks about we live in a virtual reality because what we see isn't real anyway. We see the reflection of light, you know, through an optical nerve that our brain translates through a series of experiences. And so, and you know, and Elon Musk, who I know you're a fan of, you know, talks about there's you know, a high probability that we're already living in a simulation. And Facebook Labs with Oculus Labs is really working on this thing they call live maps, where they're mapping the whole world in 3D, the real world. And they want to be able to deliver that in a way where we can always, looking through a wearable, we've been talking about phones, but what's coming next is wearables and glasses, the ability to wear glasses that are lightweight enough to be able to project these augmented view of the world into our reality. How is that, like, where do you see that coming? How far away is it? And how are you all playing in that space? I'm going to start with Vivian. You got a big smile on your face.
Yeah, no, I was 3 years ago, I was in a chat with the augmented reality community talking about Snow Crash, the book, and Metaverse, right? What does the Metaverse mean to us? It's about imagination. It's about, you know, taking the things that are human to us, Marc, that go back to you, like, how do I bring someone back, you know, who's no longer with us, and have that conversation that I never had? How do I imagine, how do we build retail products where we don't have to manufacture, you know, 7,000 units of a purse? We can actually sell the augmented reality version of it, see if we get a minimum number of orders, and then buy it. You know, it's about imagination. And I think that this marrying of real with the digital real, right? You know, is coming closer and closer and closer. We've been waiting for this, right? Like, it's so interesting. Everyone needs to read Snow Crash. It's like the Bible for augmented reality. It really is. That reality is coming closer and closer and closer. If you map that book and where we are right now, we're getting closer and closer and closer. And at the end of the day, it's about human experiences and imagination.
Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes, I think it was Neil Stephenson who wrote it, said, "The future is already here. It's just not widely distributed yet." Yeah. And that's really, I think, you know, where we are right now. And you know, Ron, you know, when we talk about wearables, this is where I think this lightweight workflow really is going to shine, because, you know, smartphones are getting more and more powerful. And, you know, I think Apple just showed with the new M1 chip in their Mac that, you know, like, they can just crush it with the ability to process data in a smartphone. But when we get into a wearable that's lightweight, that you're willing to wear, like the reason AirPods are so successful, the fact that they were belittled when they first came out. And I just want to warn the audience, don't listen to, you know, the common narrative when somebody releases a new technology and say, those look ridiculous. And next thing you know, everybody's wearing them. They're a fashion item. And AirPods is an example of that. When augmented reality glasses come out and people might ridicule them, just dismiss that, because most people don't understand human behavior and human nature. But talk about your technology and wearables and how that's going to enable this living in this augmented world.
So we know that, augmented reality glasses already exist, right? But they're bulky, they're big, they're connected somehow to a computing device. Magically, it has a wired computer that you can attach to your belt. HoloLens, the computer is on the device itself, but then it gets really heavy and warms up, etc. We know that the next stage is going to be some form of a transmission or broadcast of the content from your smartphone, from your mobile phone, to a lighter version of your glasses. And eventually, that's basically all going to disappear, and the AR glass is going to look like regular glasses. But again, it all ties to, what you need to display, what the content is going to look like, and how heavy it's going to weigh. We also think that, eventually it's going to become, lenses that you just attach to, your eyes, kind of like Black Mirror, if anybody's seen that, but, a little bit maybe further away from us, but it's definitely happened. There's big speculation about when is Apple going to release their AR device, and probably going to change, and dictate new standards in the market. So everybody's looking forward to that as well.
And I would imagine that, I know Apple's been buying companies with core technology in this space. And so, anybody investing in this space, obviously you're looking at exits, and, and there's going to be a bit of a feeding frenzy for core technology. In my opinion, this is my opinion. I'm not a shareholder. I'm not promoting the stock. I'm just saying that as an investor, you got to look at what are the core techs that are going to enable the ecosystem to grow faster, because the companies that are selling devices, they need the use cases, they need the ecosystem and to boost that. And so I'm sure you guys are well aware of that, but for the investors to be thinking about it, I think is really critical. So by the way, Molly just said she can't wait for contacts, and you've talked about that. Let's talk a little bit about timescale, because when you're investing, timescale is important, right? I mean, you've talked to Oded, you're a seed investor, but you look for things that are real now, right? And there's revenue now, and there's that market validation, right? When you look at different values. By the way, Snapchat, I just looked, still a private company, $4 billion valuation based on a round they did in 2019. They raised $250 million at a $4 billion valuation, and that was a year and a half ago. And since then, they've exploded. So a lot of stuff going on in this space, and they have a wearable, the Snap wearable, right? Which is really simple and just kind of takes pictures. Where do you see wearables coming in? What's the realistic time horizon? Apple's talked about, Bob Scoble's talked about 2022, 2023. Where do you see the wearables happening? And what's the timeline for the big milestones that you guys are waiting for that are going to drive adoption of this technology? Vivian, you want to start with that one? And we'll
Google already has an invite-only early adopter program for their glasses. Their next wave. They bought a company called Thalmic Labs. Now they've rebranded as North. We have a feeling that that's their the thing that they're spinning out. I mean, we know Google Glasses didn't work, but we've learned a lot since then, right? We've learned how to make it lightweight. There doesn't have to be a blunky battery that's like weighing you down, right? And so it's coming. It's like imminent. People have, I have people on my team that have applied for the Google early adopter glasses. So Google, if you're listening, we'd like a pair. It's imminent. It's imminent. We know that Facebook bought Oculus, so they're obviously building some stuff as well too, right? So
and Apple, Tim Cook said they're all in on augmented reality. So now, so the biggest consumer technology companies are really pushing in this.
My bet is that it's happening in 2021.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I second that.
Yeah.
Mark, what do you think? Where you think a lot about the future, wearables and then what's, and obviously there'll be, by the way, I just want to also warn people, the first iPhone only sold 700,000 units. People look at virtual reality and the adoption curve on virtual reality, and I kind of feel like the first Oculus Quest was like the first iPhone. It was that consumer product that was easy to use, easy to onboard, clearly solved the use case. And they sold somewhere under 1 million headsets. And there are some people saying, oh, well, virtual reality is a fad. The first iPhone sold 700,000. They're expecting the iPhone 12 to sell 220 million units next year. And, that's what, 12 years on. And so it takes a little time for these things to take off. What do you see like the growth curve and the ramp curve, and what are the inflection points, and when are we going to have contact lenses?
Right. Well, so I know that there are companies that have filed patents for contact lenses that the battery charges off of the saline in your eyes. So, I mean, that is definitely one of the first steps. Then you were mentioning Elon Musk before. What popped in my mind in the content we were talking to is Neuralink. Are you going to be tapping the optic nerve with Neuralink and utilizing software to put some alternative realities into your purview? That scares me because with all technology, you got to worry about where it's going to go. You don't need 5 million people walking around in an alternative universe and then popping off. But it's also, there's a lot of benefit there. But I think there's a parallel, and that is holograms. And I know Augmind has worked on holograms. Actually, they created, not necessarily a 3D hologram at our gala, but they were able to create a CGI hologram of Nikola Tesla and have him speak. Our next step would be, can you have Nikola Tesla standing next to our patrons as they come in, talking to them? Vivian mentioned a booth at a convention. Why do I have to put staff at my booth? Why can't I just have a hologram there? A hologram that interacts with people. And I think that's a level of virtual reality that we could see in parallel to glasses and contacts, and then eventually some kind
of. And I just want to jump on that one, because the big opportunity really near term for a lot of companies is avatars and photorealistic avatars. And a good friend of mine, Doug Griffin, worked for a company called Loom.ai, which made cartoon-like avatars using artificial intelligence to be able to present in, augmented reality, virtual reality. They just got bought by Roblox last week, undisclosed valuation. But, Roblox is like, if you don't know what Roblox is, it's kind of like another Fortnite type Minecraft social game that started out for kids, but now they're building their version of the metaverse. And so the ability to take, a 3D photo scan of myself and then fix it up, make it beautiful, give myself a haircut, which I'm desperately in need of, and then share that with the world, I think is going to be the next big explosion that we need for all B2B and B2C. If I go to a trade show, Vivian, I don't want to show up as a cartoon, right? Like business meetings, you need to there's certain gravitas that comes with some of this stuff, and so I love the holograms.
I have a prediction. 2021, you'll be able to make your own holograms, right? Like we're getting to that stage, right? Where it's going to happen.
Yeah, Ron. So we've talked about what's the ability. How does your technology help the ability to create a hologram and deliver it on lightweight over these devices?
Sure. Let's give the audience a little bit of an overview. What is a hologram? What's actually a hologram? Hologram is a projection of a certain 3D content, right? So it can be small, it can be big, it can be anywhere, it can be in front of a live audience on the stage, and it can be at home. There's actually devices today this size that project holograms, etc. But a hologram is essentially a 3D content, usually of a person, but it could be of anything, right? That is projected, and so making it a hologram. The projection unit can be big and small. It can be, all different kind of devices. But the big question is really, what is it that you want to project? What is the hologram? Is it of a person? Is it Nikola Tesla or the late President Paris that Augmind did? And the question is, how do you make it? All right. If the person is still with us today, there's certain mechanism that can, record or film the person speaking or talking. But if they're, not around anymore, then you have to bring them back. And there's a whole different mechanism of creating that. So it's a little bit of a different kinds of mixed processes today of creating these holograms. And where I relate to what you said earlier, Vivian, is that, being able to model ourselves eventually, we're going to have our own hologram, right? Because, we're here, we're still alive, thank God, and we're going to record ourselves, eventually going to find a way to project it as a hologram.
I think that's, and people watching might be just like, and I don't know, but like this sounds like science fiction, right? And we're living in a time, it's not, it's actually like you can do all this stuff today. Everything that we've talked about, with the exception of the contact lenses really in a way, but there are a lot of experiments going in labs. Actually, all this stuff is available today. I could demonstrate all of this if we had enough time. Yeah, amazing. So last word. Go ahead, Vivian.
If I were to simplify for the audience, this is how Next Tech AR sort of sees it. It's about being able to experience product, places, and people in a more immersive 3D way. It's actually at the fundamental core of it. It's actually quite simple, right? It's about experiences of those three fundamental things in a very intimate way in your own home, you know? So that's kind of my last words around just this notion of augmented reality, much simpler than the novels, but we're there as well, so.
Yeah, I just want to remind people, we've put some links in the chat around the companies. I've just posted a link on more information on investing in Augmind, and we'll be putting in some LinkedIn connections too for everybody on the panel. So welcome you all to connect with us on LinkedIn. Marc, last words?
Last words, I'm going to repeat the quote that you issued. The future is here, but it is not widely distributed. Well, good way to distribute it is we are going to test it at the Tesla Science Center in this space. We're going to help other science centers adopt it. And then the folks that visit science centers are probably the early adopters of this technology. So work with us. We're very excited about this field.
And so for people who might see this on replay, how do they get in touch with you and learn more about the Tesla Science Center? And it's an amazing cause. And so, you know, they're still raising money and it's a fantastic facility.
I appreciate that. It's teslasciencecenter.org. And yes, it was a $20 million project. We raised 10.2 million. A good deal of that has come from the Musk Foundation, which we're very grateful for. It's attracted some of the best talent in tech, for everybody from Vint Cerf, the inventor of the internet, to folks, you know, throughout many of the innovation ecosystems that we all belong to across the world.
Yeah, cool. Vivian, how do we get in touch with you for people watching this on replay that don't have access to the chat?
Oh, Vivian. You know what? Vivian.chan@nexttechar.com, I guess. I'll give you my email.
Ron and Oded, both last words. And how do we learn more?
Well, first of all, you can watch more and learn more about Augmind at investination.com, which actually features the most, you know, hottest investment opportunities of tech companies are coming outside of Israel. It's a U.S. crowdfunding platform for accredited investors, so you can sign up over there and have a look and join the decision that we have made already.
For Augmind, that's easy. Just log on to augmind.me, drop us an email, and we'll get back to you shortly.
Last words, Ron, for you. What's the parting words of wisdom?
So, you know, our slogan is, you know, if you can dream it, we can build it. Let's make amazing things happen together.
Yeah, awesome. And I just want to thank you guys all. Really interesting, fascinating, kind of mind-blowing stuff. You know, you wouldn't know it by listening to me, but I actually am a bit of a skeptic around some of this stuff and have been for years. And I've been called the Gordon Ramsay of XR because I tend to be a bit critical of concepts that are coming in that just aren't grounded in any kind of pragmatism or pragmatic reality as an entrepreneur. It's like, where's the traction? Where's the business model? Where's the go-to-market strategy? And I think you guys are all, you know, doing a really good job of being like realistic and pragmatic when in building a future that for most people, they just can't still get their heads around. And so I've got links to all kinds of stuff. Just copy and paste those links into your desktop. Find out more. You can reach me at bobcooney.com. On my website. I'm all over LinkedIn. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Have a wonderful holiday season. I know it's been a really difficult year for people, and I'm really looking forward to you guys bringing your technology forth so we can get off to Zoom and have better remote connections with each other. And I think that's coming, hopefully in 2021. That's exciting.
Amen for that.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and we'll see you in the metaverse. All right.
Thank you.